Hey guys, Mouthel here once again with just a small video on the Diablo 4 open beta that anyone could play and test out the game before they want to buy, pre-purchase, or just care about in the future. That's running just this weekend, still another day or so if you really want to get in and play around with it. Just wanted to make a small video on the Necromancer. So this is the one of the two new classes you can play this weekend compared to last weekend. And I chose Necromancer instead of Droid. Droid is the other one. It just doesn't look as appealing, and I think I'm more into the Necromancer skills compared to the Droid ones, but I'm going to try out the Droid as well today anyway. That said, the Necromancer is pretty damn... I'm not sure OP is the right word, but strong. For leveling. You can go up to 25, all of Act 1, and all we can really do is compare compared to the other classes that you can play and level in the beta. And I've leveled Rogue and Barbarian, and Necromancer by far had the easiest time of going from 1 to 25 and doing the campaign and running some dungeons at the mid to low levels, I guess. Basically, you start out with some skeletons, and they're basically free real estate in your build. You take up a skill slot, so there is that, but you can have some scaly warriors, some scaly mages, and then once you hit 25, you can have a golem as well. So you've already got like an army established with you, and then you can pick some skills to basically do for yourself, cast and attack with. And there are some fairly strong interactions and mechanics out there. Corpse Explosion is just something you will probably be using in your build because there's no real reason not to. It doesn't cost any of your resource, it doesn't have a cooldown, it's just based on if there's corpses around. Then there's a certain legendary that makes your Blood Mist skill just detonate all corpses around you. And that's where you get these chain detonations coming from, and that's the build that a lot of people are playing. It's not really a build, and that's kind of still the flaw with Diablo 4 thus far that we've seen. You are given an item or several items that just kind of push you towards a build, and then you're like, okay, I'm at that build now. And it's that easy. Before that, you're kind of just playing around and seeing what skills work and what you'd like to do, but unless you've got the legendaries that push you in the right direction, you're just gonna get vastly outperformed by the legendaries you do have. So I wanted to play a different skill. I wanted to play Sever, that like casts a reaping skeleton sort of thing, but ultimately Bone Spear is just much better, and then Bone Spear on our right click with the legendary becomes even better, and then you just play that, and then the Blood Mist with Corpse Explosion legendary, you get that, and you're like, okay, that's really good. Now you're just doing that, and yeah, that's basically the build. So as you can see, we're just running around. You got minions, and you cast Bone Spear sometimes to kill stuff, get some corpses up, use your Corpse Explode skill, Blood Mist, and it can clear entire areas for you. It can even generate corpses itself so that it's self-sustaining, but it does generate very slowly. But it also removes its own cooldown, so you can kind of spam it. It's, I don't know, a bit much, I think. As you can see on this like little repeat wave quest thing, we can just keep going. Feels pretty good, but yeah, the build diversity isn't much, I feel. And the other thing I picked up on while trying to make the video is the gameplay is kind of slow from a viewing perspective. You don't feel too slow when actually playing around yourself. I mean, yeah, the game is kind of slow at this point. It still is only up to level 25. Maybe it gets faster, but you are spending a good chunk of your time just like kind of slowly running through a dungeon and no real speed going on. Necromancer doesn't really have a movement skill as such, so maybe that's part of the problem, but all characters I think are a little bit slow in D4 at the moment. Might just be an early game issue. We'll see how that goes. So yeah, nothing too intricate here. I'll just log in real quick and show you guys what kind of legendaries the build needs or has at the moment, and then if you're keen, you can try Necromancer for yourself. It's a pretty strong character. There's a little character, level 25, of course, Necrothil the Trash. Do kind of one strong point, I think, is the aesthetic. The Necromancer aesthetic is really cool in this game, both the male and the female version, but you'll see a lot of Necromancers with this sort of haircut, I think, running around. I think it looks really cool, and you can do a lot with the just basic transmogs in the current game. Obviously, with the game releasing, there's probably going to be a lot more basic transmogs, but then at the same time, some paid-to-win ones as well. But even the base ones are pretty good, given that you're already paying a bunch for the game to begin with. It's got to look pretty good right off the bat, as opposed to PoE, where it's free. You then buy a lot of your cool-looking stuff. Bit of a shame that your default looks in PoE sometimes are still kind of trash, but yeah, so just leave no hat and customize stuff like the bone weave thing's really cool, just the entire set there, and then you can change it to go whatever colors you want, and can go pretty fancy. Anyway, that's just a quick aside about the aesthetics of the game. So the main thing that we need, basically, this is one of the first types of legendary I found. Blood Mist triggers corpse explosion on surrounding corpses. When Blood Mist detonates a corpse, its cooldown is reduced by 1.4. So it is currently like an 18-second cooldown, 17 seconds. And it makes you immune for the duration. So essentially, you then turn into a build that has an immunity button that travels while immune, detonating everything around it, reducing its own cooldown, prepping you for the next one. It becomes kind of overpowered, and it's a bit silly because all it is just finding a unique and then going, oh cool, there it is, or legendary, sorry. And then you go, oh, there it is, the build. You try and pick up a few extra synergies and smoothen it out, of course, but that's mostly all there is to it. And then, as I said, I really wanted to push towards making one of my core spenders Sever, which is a big lunging reap skeleton, but ultimately it's just 1-for-1, like weaker than Bone Spear, and then there's no real strong legendary that I could see or find compared to the Bone Spear. Found the Bone Spear legendary for this thing here, and then it's just way better. So once again, the game's just like, you are now playing this build, and I went, okay, I am now playing this build. And there really isn't too much else going on. Like, I don't think Bloodlance is that good. I don't think Blight is that good. It's damage over time. Some people are playing it and it's okay, but I just don't really see too much need to like go into dot at this stage, while you're just instead like one-shotting stuff. Maybe in later game, dot builds and stuff can make more sense. And then Blood Surge, an explosion around you that kind of makes you a bit more melee. Still ultimately worse than Bone Spear. You can basically pick any of your generators though. I think they're all very similar. Reap is kind of melee, so it doesn't feel great, I don't think. But otherwise, I think all of these are viable options, and I like the Blood one just a bit more than the others. But Decompose generates corpses and feels alright, and this just does a bit of extra damage but feels unnecessary. Aside from that, you just spec into Corpse Explosion so that when the corpses explode through your Blood Mist, it's generating bigger explosions. Everything else here doesn't really matter. We've got consuming a corpse generates essence, so that once you do your corpse explosions, you can then attack with the Bone Spear as much as you need, and generating some corpses on enemies. You then have potentially a choice between two curses in this game. There's only Iron Maiden and only Decrepify. I mean, amplify damage, not even actually a curse here. Decrepify, just defensive sort of curse, slows things down, can also help you do cooldown management, but seems very unnecessary. And then even in general, just doing curses seems kind of unnecessary. I'm not even sure it actually works on bosses. It feels like it doesn't. We then have Iron Maiden that makes enemies deal a bit of damage against themselves, but could also generate some essences for you, so some essence for you. I did use that for a bit, but ultimately my last button here is actually doing pretty much nothing. I almost never press it. And then This area here kind of does ultimately nothing. Corpse tendrils, where you can like pull some enemies in to a zone, but feels kind of worthless. And then bone spirit, a big energy spender, which you feel is kind of a waste of time because you'd rather just cast bone spears. I don't know. There doesn't seem to be a huge amount of diversity and variety in a Necromancer build at the moment, as far as I can tell. You kind of push towards some good stuff, and then the ultimates all kind of sucked. So Army of the Dead spawns a bunch of dudes, and they kind of explode. Felt like almost nothing, but there is a legendary that makes it a bit better. Blood Wave just rolls out a Blood Wave and it does some damage. Big cooldown, doesn't feel super worth it. And then Bone Storm feels like it barely does any damage, over 10 seconds as well, big cooldown. You can make it like better on cooldown and all that. Maybe it's worth using, but I think that's a bit of a problem with the game at the moment, where you have a ultimate button that has a very long cooldown, and currently it doesn't feel too worth pressing over just like a regular button. So either make them more powerful, shorten their cooldowns, or have it as an additional key. Something like that. Either way, not a huge amount of diversity or variety at the moment, but still pretty fun, pretty satisfying, and I have enjoyed playing my Necro thus far. I've otherwise just got Barrier, Elite thing, pretty generic for everything. Basic skill grants reduction, damage reduction. Consuming a corpse has a 30% chance to spawn a blood orb. 2 extra skeletal warriors in my boots. Amulet does 50% attack speed. Skills deal 30% damage based on your resource. And then 78% minion attack speed as long as they've attacked for a bit. And then finally, you, like I said, can have skeletal warriors, skeletal mages, and golems all at the same time. You just need to have it on your bar. And if you happen to find it lost off of your bar, you can press S and grab it from down there and drag it on. So yeah, if it's on your bar, you'll have raised skeleton and mages. They're pretty strong. They carry you early on. The golem doesn't seem to carry too much, but he helps tank, and if you press the button, he taunts. And you have different golems in the future. So all of these have a slight choice in what you can do. Reapers seem the best for skellies. Skeletal mages, Shadow seems to do really good damage. Cold is really good for essence if you need more essence. And bone, I'm not too sure if you're going to use that. They seem to just kill themselves pretty quickly, but maybe there's some legendaries that makes it more worthwhile. And then the golem, just he's golem. You can, however, one kind of neat thing is just choose to not have these minions and not put them on your bar, and then you gain something. So you gain 10% attack speed, but you don't summon a golem. Gain 15 essence, but you don't summon mages, and gain 10% shadow damage, but no longer summon skeletal warriors. But there's different buffs that you can do as well. It doesn't seem too worth though at the moment anyway, because just having the minions instead of the small buffs seems a lot nicer. But maybe it's more worth later on. No minion builds. But at the moment, it just kind of feels like too much value to have those minions for such a little cost, when you don't really need those other skills for anything else at the moment anyway. That's it. I think that's all I got to say. Fun character, fun open beta so far. Gonna play a droid as well. Probably won't have a video on it unless it feels like something really worth making a video for. Yeah, that's the build. Hope you guys enjoyed D4 beta and the videos. Thank you very much for watching. See you guys next time.